So in this video, I'm going to be telling you some of the best ways to reprice if you have multiple entries on the same listing. Now, in particular, what I'm talking about here and the most common scenario I see is where a seller has an FBA entry on the listing and an FBM entry on the very same listing. Now, what do we do? Firstly, you might be watching this thinking, why do people do that? And should I do that? Only you can answer if you are going to do that or not. But as to the reasons why people do that, there's many. I can go through all of them, but we'll be here for a long while. But just to sort of summarize, it's effectively a way that sellers are gaining a bit of a wider scope on the listing. So not only are they competing against the other FBA sellers, but they are also competing against the FBM sellers as well, and sort of appealing to two different kinds of customer audiences. There's people that want this stuff straight away, and there's people that obviously don't want to pay the prime delivery and they're happy to wait a couple of days, and they'll go for a FBM route because more so, I mean, FBM can still be next day delivery, but often FBM tends to be the one that, you know, is the standard delivery sort of time. So you are appealing to two different customer audiences there, and you are also competing against a wider range of sellers. So you can, if you really locked it in, you can dominate FBA and FBM on the very same listing. So no matter which way the tide goes in terms of fulfillment methods, you are covered both routes. And also, if there are any sort of delays or issues on Amazon side, you don't want to completely lose out due to whatever's going on at Amazon. So the FBM is kind of like a backup. There's many reasons, as I say, as to why people do this. Also to there's a cost effectiveness aspect to it as well. Like obviously with FBM, you aren't paying like the FBA fees or the storage fees or anything like that. So, you know, you might have a few there, FBM, just to rack up that bit more profit. As I say, many reasons. So let's get right into it. Now, how does Profit Protector Pro handle it if you have multiple entries on the same listing? Well, Profit Protector Pro isn't going to eat at itself and like knock one much lower than the other one. It's going to try its very best to get both of them to a decent position on the listing. So you don't have to worry that, oh, if I've got multiple entries, it might like really favor one. How things are favored is pretty much in your control. So let's go through setup. So this is the FBA one right here. Obviously, please double check everything in it is set exactly as you'd want it to be. So in particular, FBA, FBM, because that's going to tell Profit Protector Pro the sort of fees to consider or not to consider when it comes to calculating things like your estimated profit ROI. And it's also especially important to let Profit Protector Pro know the right fulfillment method, especially if you're auto calculating min, max prices and break even, because it will of course have an effect. So that's the main thing you really want to be doing here. And in terms of strategy, any of them that aren't the MF ones, so any of the AI ones or the rule-based ones, or maybe you've made a custom strategy, I don't know, whichever one you want. Now, the strategy here, the only thing to consider is like how you want your multiple listings to sort of like sit. Do you want one to sort of like be the lead one and dominate a bit more, and the other one's sort of like chill, or do you want them both to be doing the very best that they can be? In which case, if you want one to dominate a bit more than the other, then I would recommend having an aggressive strategy on, say, this one, and this will be your FBM entry. Let me just toggle that over. So this is the FBM entry, and in that case, there is a different range of strategies to use for merchant fulfilled, but you know, just to ensure that one is like really going to dominate over the other, then like a chiller strategy would be anything from balanced all the way through to the dynamic profit builder. So one that sits in the middle of a sales and profit focus, all the way through to those that have got very much a profit focus over sales. So yeah, if you want it to be like that, then you can do that. If you want them to be virtually the same, bearing in mind FBA has, of course, the slight advantage over FBM, sort of 7 times out of 10 naturally, just due to the nature of FBA. What you might want to do here is maybe set something like the balance as accumulator on here, and then for the strategy on the FBM one, either the MF aggressive sales generator or the MF balance sales accumulator, and that will have them working sort of equally to get them both up to a decent position. Okay, so really, as far as setup is concerned, that is the best way to go about it. Now, obviously, when you set a MF strategy, it's going to focus on competing against merchant fulfilled sellers. Okay, that's the main competition for FBM. For FBA, it's FBA and Amazon. So the thing to bear in mind is with the strategies, the aggressive ones and the balance sales accumulator will compete against both FBA and then also FBM if it's absolutely necessary. So if there is, say, an FBM seller that is really strong on that listing and repricing really, really well, and they are getting hold of the buy box often, then Profit Protector Pro will be able to switch into a mode whereby it will compete with them as well, and it's not just completely ignoring them to help you secure that buy box. If you do not want it to compete with any merchant fulfilled sellers on your FBA entry, anything from Cautious Sales Enhancer through to Passive Profit Maximizer will do. Alternatively, if you want something that is aggressive or balanced and you don't want it to compete against merchant fulfilled, what you can do is, there's multiple things you can do here. You can do ignore merchants, and you can enter in the merchant IDs of whoever it is on the listing that you want to ignore. So you can do that, or you can just set like ignore FBM or whatever, add that. Or you can set a custom strategy, and when you go to do that, let's do a new one. What fulfillment method do you want to compete with? You can choose FBA or merchant fulfilled. So if you're going down the custom strategy route, then one or the other, and that will help you. Basically compete against the relevant competition. So as far as setup is concerned, that is effectively it. So a non-MF strategy and MF strategy, and then I've said what I've said about if you want one over the other or sort of both to be quite equal. For the FBA, FBM ones, like competing with Amazon, like for the merchant fulfilled one, I wouldn't have said that this is of integral importance. As I say, your main competition is merchant fulfilled. If Amazon are going to dominate, Amazon are going to dominate. I mean, you'll probably want that on for FBA. I mean, it's completely up to you. But yeah, compete with Amazon is another toggle to consider, but it's not as, of course, as it's not as important as the strategy. In terms of the pricing, obviously, it's going to be a bit different. So your min-max for the FBA one will probably be a bit higher to, of course, accommodate for things like FBA fees, storage fees and so forth. Obviously, in terms of the costs, it is a bit more costly just due to the nature of what it is. So you might want to increase your minimum and maximum prices to be a bit higher to ensure that you are going to be making some money from that and it's not just all consumed by the fees. For merchant fulfilled, you can have that exactly the same, and obviously you'll be making more profit because you don't have the FBA fees and so forth. You may want to put them a little bit lower because you can afford to do that, like somewhat, since obviously there's no FBA fee, storage fee, so you could put them like just slightly lower, and then you are able to, again, cover more areas on the listing. So like people will pay what they're going to pay, but if the listing falls where it's going to be cheaper, your FBM one might take favor there with slightly cheaper pricing. So yeah, don't forget any prices that you set, save all price changes. As I say, it's not going to have like an Avengers Endgame style super fight against one another. It's your Profit Protector Pro, it's your listings, it's going to do what it can to get both to a good favor. But of course, if you want one to slightly dominate more than the other, that is down to the kind of strategy that you are setting. Hopefully this helps you. Thank you for watching.